The arena floated in the blackness of space like a crown of fire. It circled a dead star whose light had vanished millions of years ago, leaving only shadows and silence. Yet within this arena there was no silence. There were voices, thousands upon thousands of voices, rising in waves like storms over oceans. Every seat was filled. Every race from the great expanse of the galaxy had come to witness the war games. These games were not mere contests of strength. They were traditions older than most civilizations present. Each species that considered itself powerful, worthy, or advanced took pride in sending champions. It was not simply about winning, it was about honor. To win in the arena meant recognition. To lose was to carry shame for generations. On this day, the Vaith Dominion stood as rulers of the field. Their banners glowed across the upper balconies. Their voices rang loudest, mocking those who dared to oppose them. The Vaith were tall, armored beings with scales harder than steel and eyes that burned red. They had fought dozens of battles in the arena, and in every one they had emerged victorious. Their record was flawless, their confidence unshaken. To them, the games were not a test, but a stage for their glory. The crowd roared again as another challenger fell. A four-armed fighter from the Kren species lay broken on the ground, his weapons scattered like discarded toys. The announcer declared the Vaith as winners, and the sound of their victory echoed like thunder. The Vaith warriors raised their blades to the sky and laughed. To them this was sport. To others it was cruelty. On the far side of the arena, where the human delegation sat, there was silence. Their section looked almost too small compared to the banners of the Vaith, or the massive cheering crowds of other empires. Humans had entered the games late, and to most species they seemed unremarkable. Fragile bodies, short lifespans, technology that was adequate but not advanced. There was nothing about them that spoke of greatness. At least not in the eyes of the galaxy. Whispers spread through the stands. Why have the humans not sent anyone yet? Are they afraid? Perhaps they finally realized their weakness. Some spectators laughed openly. Others shook their heads with pity. It was one thing to be weak, but it was another to be too timid even to try. For hours, match after match was fought, and still the humans sent no one forward. Their seats remained quiet, their banner lowered. The Vaith seized on this silence. Their warlord, a towering figure named Varric, raised his hand toward the human section. His voice carried across the arena, magnified by the sound systems. "Where are the humans?" Varric demanded. "Have they lost their courage? Or do they know their place already beneath our boots?" Laughter exploded from the Vaith side. Their allies joined in, adding their voices to the wave of mockery. Even some neutral species smiled, for the sight of humans sitting still and silent only confirmed the reputation they already believed. Weak, cautious, unworthy of legend. The announcer did not respond. He looked toward the human delegation, waiting, but no movement came. Finally, he turned back to Varric and announced the Vaith's victory once again. The warlord grinned, spreading his arms wide as if the entire galaxy belonged to him. By now, the games had gone on long enough that most assumed the humans would never step forward. Perhaps they had only come as observers. Perhaps they had misjudged what the games truly were. The arena settled into the rhythm of expectation. More Vaith victories, more humiliation for challengers. The outcome felt inevitable. But then, just as the Vaith celebrated yet another triumph, a sound stirred. It was small at first, almost too soft to notice, the opening of heavy doors. The audience turned. On the far side of the arena, the gate reserved for the next challenger opened slowly, the light spilling across the stone floor. From the darkness, a figure appeared. The crowd fell into silence. It was not a towering alien with shining armor. It was not a beast with claws and teeth meant for slaughter. It was a human. He walked calmly, his steps measured, his expression steady. There was no shining suit of armor, no advanced exoframe, no strange alien technology. He wore simple protective gear and carried a blade that seemed almost too plain for the grand stage of the games. To many, he looked like nothing more than an ordinary soldier who had wandered into the wrong place. For a long moment, no one spoke. The laughter of the Vaith died in their throats, replaced by confusion. Then slowly the mockery returned. "Is this their champion?" One voice called from the crowd. "A fragile creature with soft skin and dull eyes," another shouted. Even the announcer hesitated. His voice, usually so confident, cracked with disbelief. The humans have sent forth their champion." The Vaith warlord threw his head back and laughed. His warriors joined him, the sound rolling like thunder across the arena. Varric pointed at the human and shouted, "This? This is the best humanity can offer?" I almost pity them. The human did not respond. He did not flinch, nor did he glance at the laughing crowd. His eyes stayed fixed on the field, as if the noise of thousands of alien voices did not exist. His grip tightened on his blade, not in fear, but in focus. Among the human delegation, silence remained. No cheers, no cries of encouragement. Only calm faces watching their lone warrior step forward. They did not need to shout. They did not need to explain. The act itself spoke louder than any words. The Vaith continued to jeer, but a quiet tension spread through the audience. For all their mockery, for all their certainty, there was something unsettling about the human's calm. He was not afraid. He was not trembling. He did not even look nervous. He walked with the ease of someone who had already accepted what must be done. The announcer, regaining his composure, raised his voice. "Prepare for the next battle. The challenger, humanity, against the reigning champions, the Vaith Dominion." The crowd roared again, though now the sound was mixed. There was laughter, yes, but there was also curiosity. Could this truly be the extent of humanity's courage? A single fragile soldier against giants? Or was there something hidden behind that steady gaze? The human reached the center of the field. He raised his blade, not high in boastful pride, but level and ready, as if acknowledging that the fight was no performance. It was survival. His eyes met the Vaith warlords, and for a fleeting moment, the laughter in Varric's throat died. The warlord quickly masked it with a sneer. But the silence had already been felt. The battle had not yet begun, but already the arena had changed. The humans were no longer invisible. They had chosen their champion, and the galaxy would remember this moment. The moment when the foes celebrated too soon, and a human stepped onto the field. The arena lights blazed brighter as the battle raged on. Dust swirled in the air, stirred by the pounding steps of the Vaith warriors and the force of their weapons striking the sand. But through it all, the human remained standing. His movements were not frantic or wild. Every step, every turn, every strike of his blade carried meaning. He wasted nothing. The spectators could no longer sit comfortably. Where once they had laughed and jeered, now they leaned forward, their voices hushed. Entire species who had once dismissed humanity now whispered to one another, searching for an explanation. The announcer, who at first had spoken with disbelief, now found his voice steady. The human challenger holds his ground. Against 7, now against the warlord himself, humanity does not fall. The sound of his words carried through the arena, and the meaning sank deep. Humanity was not weak prey anymore. Humanity was standing toe-to-toe with the galaxy's fiercest champions. Varric, the Vaith warlord, roared in fury. His golden armor flashed as he swung his blade again and again. Each strike was a storm. Each strike was meant to crush. Yet the human met these attacks not with equal force, but with clever timing. He never blocked head-on. He never resisted the raw power. He redirected, he evaded. He let the warlord's strength fall uselessly against the sand. The Vaith watching from the stands grew restless. Their cheers turned into growls of frustration. This was not how the games were meant to go. Their leader was not supposed to struggle against such a small, fragile opponent. Varric snarled, "Fight me with strength." "Do not run like prey," the human answered with silence. His calm eyes met the warlord's, and for a brief moment Varric felt something he had not felt in years: uncertainty. The other 4 Vaith warriors circled closer. They knew their warlord's pride was great, but they also knew they could not allow this human to stand any longer. With a shared growl, they leapt into the fray once more, their weapons flashing. The arena exploded with sound as 6 blades came down upon one human, yet the crowd saw something strange. Where the Vaith moved with raw power, the human moved with rhythm. He flowed between them like water around stone. Every strike missed by a breath, every swing struck empty air. And when he chose to counter, it was with sharp precision. A spear came thrusting at him. He sidestepped, twisted the weapon, and the Vaith warrior crashed into his ally. A heavy axe came down. He slipped aside, letting it bury itself in the sand. Then with one swift motion, his blade cut across the exposed arm. Sparks flew as armor cracked, and the warrior howled. The crowd gasped. Another Vaith fell to his knees, his weapon lost. 3 remained, plus the warlord. The announcer shouted, his voice almost shaking with excitement, "Another Vaith down!" Humanity continues to rise. This time the crowd erupted not with laughter but with cheers. Not all cheered, of course. The Vaith shouted in anger, demanding blood. But other species, those long oppressed by the Dominion's arrogance, cheered with hope. For the first time in ages, the Vaith were struggling. The human's breathing was steady. Sweat glistened on his skin, but his eyes were sharp, his movements precise. He did not show panic. He did not show fear. He showed something else, patience. Varric's pride could no longer bear it. With a roar that shook the arena, he charged forward, his massive blade raised high. The human waited. At the last moment, he stepped aside, and the warlord's strike buried itself in the ground, sending sand flying. Before Varric could recover, the human struck not at the armor's thick plates, but at the gap where the shoulder met the chest. The blade scraped, sparks flying, and though it did not pierce fully, it left a scar upon the golden armor. The arena fell silent. The Vaith warlord staggered back, looking at the mark. It was small, but it was undeniable. A human weapon, wielded by human hands, had touched the warlord's body. The silence broke into roars. Some shouted in shock, others in anger, but many in awe. The announcer cried, "The human has struck the warlord!" Varric's face twisted with rage. His pride as an undefeated champion was bleeding in front of the galaxy. He could not accept it. "You dare!" he growled, swinging wildly, each blow heavier than before. But wild fury brought mistakes. The human saw them. He stepped back, letting the warlord exhaust himself. He turned the battlefield into a dance, moving between the attacks, waiting, watching. The remaining Vaith warriors tried to trap him again, but their unity had broken. Their warlord's anger disrupted their formation, and the human exploited it. He moved quickly, striking where they were weakest, until another warrior fell, clutching a wounded leg. 3 remained. The human still stood. The galaxy watched with bated breath. Entire worlds were connected to the arena broadcast. Billions of eyes saw what was happening, and billions of minds began to question everything they had believed about humans. The human was not a monster of power. He was not a giant. He did not wield advanced technology. Yet he stood against the strongest warriors known. He stood with strategy, patience, and the will to endure. Varric bellowed again, swinging his blade in a furious arc. The human ducked low, rolled across the sand, and rose behind him. He struck at the joint in the warlord's leg, forcing Varric to stumble. The crowd roared louder. The mighty warlord stumbling? Such a sight had never been seen. Varric turned, his face twisted with fury and disbelief. "I will tear you apart." The human said nothing. He raised his blade once more, steady and calm. The clash continued. Sparks flew with every strike, sand flew with every step. The crowd was no longer mocking, it was alive with energy. The Vaith roared in anger. Other species shouted encouragement for the human. The arena had become more than a battlefield. It had become a stage for history, and as the battle raged on, one truth grew clearer with every passing moment. This was no ordinary fight. This was not just one warrior against another. This was humanity proving itself before the galaxy. The announcer's voice rang out again, filled with awe. "The clash continues. Humanity endures. The warlord bleeds." The spectators felt it deep in their hearts. Something was changing. The galaxy's order, the belief in who was strong and who was weak, was shifting before their eyes, and through it all the human fought on, not with arrogance, not with cruelty, but with steady determination. He was not fighting only for victory. He was fighting for something greater. The Vaith had celebrated too soon. Now the galaxy watched as a lone human clashed with a world of giants, and the giants trembled. The arena was alive with noise, but in the center stood only one human. His name was not announced. No long titles, no grand history spoken before him. He was simply called the Human Champion. That alone made the crowd laugh again. The Vaith Dominion, with all their power and pride, would face someone who looked ordinary. The announcer's voice trembled slightly as he spoke. "By the ancient laws of the games, the battle shall begin once both sides stand ready. Challengers, prepare." The Vaith warlord Varric stepped forward. His scales reflected the arena lights like polished steel, and his armor shone with golden edges. Behind him, 6 other Vaith warriors formed a line, their weapons glowing with blue energy. Each one stood taller than the human by several heads. Their claws curled around spears, axes, and curved blades that hummed with power. To the spectators it seemed unfair. Not only was the human smaller and weaker in appearance, but he also faced not one opponent, but 7. The Vaith fought in teams, each warrior trained from birth in battle formations. The human had no team, no allies, and no advanced weapons. He carried only his simple blade. "End this quickly," Varric said, his deep voice carrying across the sand. "Show the galaxy the foolishness of these soft-skinned creatures." The human tilted his head slightly, studying them. He said nothing. He did not even adjust his stance. His calmness unsettled some of the audience. It was not the calm of arrogance, nor the calm of despair. It was the calm of focus. The great horn sounded. The battle began. The 6 Vaith warriors charged forward as one, their heavy footsteps shaking the ground. Energy weapons blazed in their hands. Their voices rose in a battle cry that shook the arena walls. The spectators shouted in excitement, many already imagining how quickly the human would fall. But the human did not run. He did not scream. He moved. When the first spear came thrusting forward, the human shifted his body just enough that the weapon slid past him. His blade flicked upward, not to strike the warrior, but to cut the shaft near the grip. The Vaith stumbled as his weapon snapped in two. Before the crowd could process it, the human spun aside, letting the momentum of another Vaith carry him forward. The alien stumbled into his own ally. A third swung his glowing axe, but the human ducked low, rolled across the sand, and rose to his feet behind them. The audience gasped. It was not raw strength. It was not speed beyond imagination. It was timing. The human saw the flow of the battle, each movement of his foes, and answered them with precision. He did not try to overpower them. He redirected, avoided, and turned their strength into weakness. Varric growled, his eyes narrowing. "Do not play with him. Crush him!" The warriors roared again and attacked in pairs, their blades crossing to trap the human between them. For a moment it seemed he had no escape, but then he dropped to one knee, sliding beneath the crossing strikes. His blade flashed once, only once, and one of the Vaith fell, his leg cut at the joint where the armor was weakest. The warrior crashed into the sand, roaring in pain. The crowd erupted in noise. Some cheered. Some shouted in disbelief. Others demanded explanations. How had such a small strike toppled such a powerful fighter? The announcer shouted into the air. "The human has drawn first blood." This simple sentence carried weight. It meant the human was no longer seen as a victim. He had proven he could fight. The remaining 5 Vaith encircled him, their red eyes burning with fury. They moved more cautiously now, their earlier arrogance shaken. The human stood tall in the center, breathing calmly, his blade steady in his hand. He whispered something, too soft for the crowd to hear. But those closest swore they saw his lips form the words, one at a time. The next attack came from behind. A Vaith swung his spear downward like a hammer. The human twisted, catching the shaft with his free hand. For a heartbeat, the crowd thought he would be crushed. But then, with sudden precision, he shifted his weight and pulled. The Vaith's strength worked against him. He fell forward, stumbling past the human, who struck once at the gap between his plates. The warrior dropped, his armor sparking. Another gasp echoed across the stands. 2 Vaith had fallen. Only 4 remained. The galaxy's laughter turned to whispers. Is this possible? How is he doing this? He is not faster. He is not stronger. He is different. Varric's lips pulled back in a snarl. He could no longer sit still. His pride demanded he take part. With a roar that shook the air, he leapt into the fight. His golden armor gleamed, his massive blade sparking with energy. The crowd cheered wildly, certain that this would end the human's defiance. The warlord towered over the human. His first swing came down like a falling mountain. The sand burst upward where the blade struck, but the human had already moved. He slipped aside, his movement smooth and economical. The warlord swung again, faster, his blade cutting arcs of light. Each strike would have shattered stone walls. Yet the human avoided them with steps that seemed almost casual. It was not luck. It was not panic. It was patience. The crowd grew restless. They expected the warlord to crush the human in seconds, yet the fight dragged on. Every swing missed. Every strike failed. Varric grew angrier with each passing moment. His warriors hesitated, unsure whether to join or stay back. The human struck only once, testing, his blade sparking against the edge of Varric's armor. It did not break through, but it left a mark that proved even the warlord was not untouchable. Gasps echoed again. For the first time, Varric's confidence faltered. His strikes became reckless, driven by rage instead of control. The human dodged, sidestepped, and watched. He waited. The audience, once full of laughter, now leaned forward in silence. Every eye was locked on the lone challenger. The announcer's voice trembled.
The battle continues.
Humanity still stands, and though the outcome was not yet decided, one truth had already spread across the arena. The foes had celebrated too soon. The arena was silent for a moment, though only a heartbeat. Then chaos returned, louder than before. The human had proven himself, but the Vaith were not finished. Pride burned like fire in the warlord's chest, and he refused to accept defeat. His golden armor shone in the harsh lights of the arena, now marked with scratches and dents from the human's strikes. The sand beneath his feet was torn and broken, evidence of the battle's intensity. Varric roared, a sound that shook the upper stands, shaking even the spectators' seats.
Enough, I will end this myself.
His voice was like thunder, demanding obedience from the remaining warriors. Yet even they hesitated, feeling the shift in momentum. Their confidence, once unshakable, now wavered. The human did not back away. He stood in the center of the arena, breathing steadily, blade in hand, eyes locked on the warlord. His calm presence contrasted sharply with the Vaith's fury. The audience watched with bated breath. Every species in the arena felt the tension like an electric charge in the air. Then Varric lunged forward, faster than any warrior the human had faced before. His massive blade arced down, sending sand flying in clouds, and the sound of its swing reverberated like the roar of a collapsing mountain. Many would have crumbled beneath such force, but the human did not. He moved in a way that seemed almost impossible. Not faster, not stronger, but precise. He sidestepped, allowing the blade to pass by with a whisper of air. The warlord's momentum carried him past the human, giving him a chance to strike. The human's blade cut across the gap in Varric's armor once more, sparks flying. A mark appeared. It was small but undeniable. The warlord had been touched by a human weapon. Gasps filled the arena. Varric turned, rage burning in his red eyes. "You dare touch me?" he bellowed. Each word seemed to shake the very walls of the arena. He swung again, heavier, faster, a flurry of energy designed to crush the human instantly. The human ducked under one strike, rolled beneath another, and moved with calm rhythm through the chaos. Each move was calculated. Each step had purpose. He did not attack recklessly. He waited for the opening. The remaining Vaith warriors saw it too. They realized their warlord's rage had made him predictable. They hesitated, unsure whether to join the fight or stay back. This split-second hesitation was all the human needed. He struck again, swift, precise, and focused. One more Vaith fell, clutching an injured leg. Varric's eyes widened. His pride, his confidence, his certainty of victory, all of it had been shattered in a matter of minutes by one human being. "Impossible," he shouted, his voice a mixture of anger and disbelief. The human's breathing was steady. He did not speak. He did not shout. He simply observed, waited, and calculated. Every strike, every movement was a puzzle he was solving. The warlord's strength was overwhelming, but the human's mind was sharper. Varric swung again. This time the human anticipated the attack. He stepped aside, ducked low, and thrust his blade forward with precision. Sparks flew. The warlord staggered, the crowd erupted. The Vaith supporters were stunned into silence. Other species, previously silent, now cheered loudly. The human had not only survived, he had turned the fight. The warlord roared in frustration and swung wildly, breaking the rhythm of his own attacks. The human moved like a shadow, slipping past defenses and exploiting weaknesses in armor. Another strike, another Vaith warrior down. Only Varric remained. The arena had changed. Where once the human seemed fragile and small, he now stood as a figure of unshakable determination. Every eye in the galaxy's audience was on him. Billions watched, recording, sharing, and whispering among themselves. Humans are not weak. Humans are not ordinary. Humans are dangerous. Varric's movements became desperate. Each strike was heavier, more forceful, but less precise. His rage made him predictable. The human anticipated, sidestepped, and struck again. This time his blade hit a critical joint in the armor. Varric stumbled, barely keeping his balance. The audience gasped. It was the turning point. The Vaith warlord, once untouchable, was vulnerable. Now, the human whispered under his breath. It was not loud, but it carried through the tension of the moment. The human was not attacking recklessly. He was waiting for the perfect opening. One strike could change the outcome of this battle, perhaps even the outcome of the war games themselves. The warlord swung again, Furious and blind with anger, the human ducked beneath the strike, rolled to the side, and struck at the gap between Varric's leg and torso. Sparks flew as the armor cracked under precision, and the warlord stumbled to one knee. The arena fell silent. Even the announcer could not find words. This was a moment that had never been seen before. A single human, smaller and weaker in appearance, had brought the mighty warlord to his knees. Varric struggled to rise, but the human stayed calm. He did not shout. He did not taunt. He simply moved closer, blade steady. His calmness was unnerving. The remaining spectators were on the edge of their seats. Aliens who had laughed at humanity now whispered in disbelief, staring with wide eyes. Humans in the stands held their breath, proud and silent. Billions of viewers across the galaxy were watching, realizing that everything they believed about humans had been incomplete. The warlord roared, a sound of both fury and desperation. He struck again, but the human anticipated every movement. Each swing missed. Each attack failed. And then, at last, the human saw the opening. With one swift, precise motion, he struck, not with brute force, but with skill and accuracy. The warlord fell. The golden armor struck the ground with a resonant clang, and sparks danced across the arena. Silence fell. No cheers, no laughter, only the sound of sand settling, dust drifting in the still air. The mighty warlord of the Vaith Dominion had been defeated by a single human being. The announcer finally spoke, his voice trembling. The warlord has fallen. Humanity stands victorious. The crowd erupted. Cheering, shouting, and exclamations filled the arena. Species that had never believed in humans before now bowed their heads in respect. Even some of the Vaith warriors who had survived did not move, staring at the human with shock and disbelief. The human stood in the center of the arena, breathing steadily, blade in hand. He did not raise his arms. He did not shout in triumph. He simply nodded slightly, acknowledging the battle had ended. His eyes scanned the arena, calm and focused. The message was clear. Humans did not need to boast. Humans did not need power or advanced technology to prove themselves. They needed determination, intelligence, and courage. That alone was enough to overcome giants. The warlord's banner fell. The other Vaith withdrew silently, defeated in spirit as well as in battle. Their celebration had been premature, their confidence shattered. Humanity had not only survived the impossible, they had changed the perception of the entire galaxy in one day. And through it all, the human remained calm, a figure of patience and determination. He had not sought glory, but he had achieved it. He had not sought revenge, but he had earned respect. He had not shouted, yet his actions spoke louder than words. The arena, once full of noise and mockery, now echoed with awe. Species from all corners of the galaxy whispered, stared, and cheered. They had witnessed history. This was the turning point. The day the humans showed that strength was not only in muscle or technology, but in mind, in patience, and in courage. The day the Vaith learned that no species should underestimate humanity. Part 5. Humanity's mark. The arena was quiet, yet the silence felt alive. Every eye, every mind, every heart in the stands and across the galaxy's broadcast were fixed on the human champion. Dust hung in the air, illuminated by the harsh lights of the arena, creating a golden haze that reflected off the battered armor of the fallen Vaith warlord. The once proud warriors of the Dominion now stood scattered, uncertain, and humbled. Their celebration, which had begun so loudly, had ended in stunned silence. The human remained calm. He did not raise his weapon in triumph, nor did he shout to the crowds. He lowered his blade slightly and scanned the arena. His gaze was steady, composed, and thoughtful, as though the battle had been a test to measure more than strength. He had passed that test. He had proven something to the galaxy and, most importantly, to himself. The human's presence alone had transformed the atmosphere. Where there had once been mockery and dismissal, now there was awe. The alien spectators whispered among themselves, and even some of the defeated Vaith warriors looked on with respect. Their warlord, the mightiest among them, had fallen, not through brute force, but through strategy, precision, and unyielding courage. Humanity had rewritten the rules of what was possible. From the upper stands, the human delegation rose to their feet. They did not shout. They did not wave banners. They simply watched, proud and silent, knowing that the actions of one individual had honored an entire species. Around the galaxy, billions of viewers shared the moment, Ships, colonies, and planets paused to record and comment, replaying the events in astonishment. News feeds buzzed endlessly with the same message. Humans are not to be underestimated. The Vaith warlord struggled to rise from the sand, but his pride had been broken. His armor was dented, scratched, and scorched. The human had proven that intellect and strategy could overcome raw power. He looked at the human with a mixture of anger, disbelief, and beneath it all respect. He realized that victory could no longer be assumed in a galaxy filled with species who thought themselves invincible. Barrick spoke at last, his voice heavy with grudging acknowledgement. "You are unlike any we have faced," he said, pausing as he caught his breath. "Humans are dangerous. They are clever and relentless." His words carried across the arena, not as a threat but as a statement of truth. The human did not respond. His focus remained on the arena, on the sand where so much effort and determination had been spent. He had not come to boast. He had come to show that humanity, though small and fragile compared to giants, had the capacity to endure, to adapt, and to overcome. That lesson was far more powerful than any speech. The announcer's voice finally rose, trembling with excitement and awe. "The battle is concluded. Humanity has triumphed. The human champion stands victorious over the mighty Vaith dominion." The crowd erupted. Cheers, shouts, and applause filled every corner of the arena. Species that had once dismissed humans as weak or insignificant now shouted their admiration. Some of the Vaith, silent and shocked, even lowered their heads in respect, realizing the depth of the challenge they had underestimated. The humans slowly walked toward the edge of the arena. Each step was deliberate, each movement calm and measured. He did not run. He did not celebrate. His victory was quiet, almost humble, yet it was impossible to ignore. The galaxy had seen the human endure and overcome what was thought impossible. As he reached the edge of the arena, a young alien from a distant planet, who had been cheering quietly throughout the match, shouted, "This is incredible. He has changed everything we thought about humans." Others echoed the sentiment. From the farthest stands to the floating platforms above, the message spread. Humanity had made its mark. The human glanced at the fallen Vaith warlord one last time. There was no hatred in his gaze. He did not strike again. He had proven his point. He had shown the value of patience, of intelligence, and of courage. Victory had been achieved not through arrogance, not through recklessness, but through persistence and careful calculation. The human's eyes then turned toward the spectators. For the first time he spoke. His voice was calm, steady, and clear, carrying across the arena. "Strength is not only measured in power," he said. "It is measured in determination, in thought, and courage. Even the smallest can overcome the greatest if they do not give up." The words were simple, yet they carried weight. They resonated in the minds of everyone present. They were repeated in whispers, in conversations across ships and worlds, and across communications channels that reached billions. Humanity's reputation, once underestimated, now held undeniable respect. In the stands, humans silently clapped, proud of their champion. Other species cheered too, some out of genuine admiration, others because they realized they had witnessed history. The human had not only won a battle, he had shifted the perception of an entire species across the galaxy. The warlord, still kneeling, lifted his gaze. His pride was wounded, but he recognized the truth. He had faced something he had not anticipated. "Humans," he muttered under his breath, "they are remarkable." The remaining Vaith warriors retreated quietly, leaving the humans standing alone. The arena, once a place of mockery and domination, had transformed into a testament to the strength of humanity. The sand, now marked with countless footprints, cuts, and strikes, told the story of resilience and determination. The announcer spoke once more, his voice filled with awe. "Today the galaxy has seen something extraordinary. One human has stood against the mighty Vaith, has overcome impossible odds, and has shown that courage and intelligence can triumph where brute strength cannot. Let this day be remembered across time and space." The human lowered his blade fully and nodded once, almost imperceptibly. He turned and walked toward the exit, his steps calm, steady, and unhurried. Every species watching knew that he carried more than victory. He carried the essence of humanity itself, a combination of intelligence, courage, and resilience that could not be measured by size or strength alone. Across the galaxy, whispers became conversation. Messages traveled faster than light, shared across colonies, trading posts, and starships. Humans are more than they seem. Humans are dangerous. Humans endure. The legend of the human champion was born that day, not because he had destroyed countless enemies with overwhelming power, not because he had shouted or boasted, but because he had proven that even one human, with courage, determination, and intelligence, could change the course of events in ways that giants could not. On that day, the Vaith Dominion and the entire galaxy learned an unforgettable lesson. The human had not only won the battle in the arena, he had won respect, admiration, and a place in the history of the galaxy. And as the sunless light of the dead star reflected on the arena, casting long shadows across the sand, one truth became clear. The galaxy would never again underestimate humanity. The human champion's mark was not just on the field. It was on the hearts and minds of all who had witnessed his courage. It was a quiet victory, but it was absolute. And somewhere in quiet human homes and bustling colonies across distant worlds, people spoke in hushed tones, proud and inspired. Our species can endure. Our species can adapt. Our species can triumph. The legend of humanity had begun.